This is a good one though.
It is. Thanks for starting us out live, Joe. All right, so Tesla beat number 85. This is crazy. We had the Tesla earnings call on Wednesday, and then we also had the big unveil of the Teslas being able to drive themselves from the production line to the shipping yard, pretty much, because they're getting calibrated on the line. We've seen more news coming out about the new Model Y. So a lot happening in the Tesla world. Shout out to Joe Prez Media for creating the amazing deck this week. And shout out to our amazing co-hosts, Brian FutureAza and Hans C. Nielsen. How's it going, everyone?
Doing great. What a morning. What a week. Yeah, there's a lot of, oh boy, how come no one's talking about how miserably Tesla performed? Boy, I'm waiting for my shorts to print. Well, my friend, it's a rough day or two for you then. We've had some high visibility alleged departures from the Tesla Q community. Perhaps those are real and not just more bluster and nonsense. I'll believe it when I see it. But yeah, there's no reason a company should be trading at this multiple of its earnings. Okay, fine. By all means, exit and get back in at a price that makes more sense to you. But I've seen people do that unsuccessfully in the past. And this was a good bit of roadmap, I think. And the roadmap is not a dream board. Because when things are within a year's time, they're a lot more real. And the big things that barely got mentioned, Tesla Megapack China factory, that's going to be a cash printing machine, and it is already running. That's just going to happen. So there's a lot to get into, and I'm excited.
Well, we're going to get into it all. So let's just jump into the deck. So Joe, always using Grok, Tesla Beat podcast. We know the robots are coming. So stock pretty much flat week over week. Year to date, it's up 10%. But again, pretty insane at 1.3 trillion. Elon was making some crazy comments. I think something like projected like $10 trillion of potential revenue for robots. But Elon said that, it's going to be insanely hard. There's a lot of things that have to happen, but Tesla could become the most valuable company, and he said by a large margin. So we'll get into some of that, but yeah, who knows? Not a financial advice, but long term, this could be an amazing stock. All right, so at a high level, we'll get into, I think, everyone's big takeaways. We'll go through the panel, but from the earnings call, I think just some of the big things that are happening. A shout out to Owen. I think he responded, and I thought that was a good comment. I think I sent it to Joe. But new Tesla models coming this year, potentially steer-by-wire, rear-wheel steering coming to the models, semi-ramping, Cybercab ready for volume production in 2026, unsupervised FSD in Austin by June, and potentially a lot of other major cities throughout the rest of this year. And then, of course, we know autopilot continues to be, or full self-driving technology ends up being still a lot, almost 6 times, or what is this? I guess it's like 7 times more. I can't even do the math right now, but yeah, it's getting very, very good, like 7-8 times better. I think it's 702 miles per accident for automobiles, but for Teslas, it's roughly 6 million miles. So you're talking almost a 9 to 10x on that. But yeah, those were I think big call outs, but I think I want to go to the panel. You guys have also, the great thing about this podcast too, is that one, it's on Fridays. So, they always drop the amazing news typically on Thursday nights. And secondly, if there is an earnings call, we always get, the more mature thoughts after you've had 1-2 days of thinking about it. But who wants to kick us off on the earnings call feedback?
I can, because I don't really have much to say. The earnings call was amazing. No, I was kidding. Okay, so I think that there was a lot overall. I was super excited about the call. I think it was a a happy Elon. I know a lot of people were talking about that. I was watching some of the podcasts prior to, and I know people were like worried about which Elon was going to show up and all that type of stuff. But I think people fail to realize like his vision and ability to see the future is, I mean, better than 98% of people on the planet right now. And for you to discount what he's saying when a lot of the things he's called out has come to pass is just like not very wise. And to think that if he sees a path to it, then it's more than likely going to happen. So I just think the earnings call was really great. I will say something that we'll probably get into later, but I was at a not an event, but at a tech presentation meeting during the call. And so after the call, I went and talked to these tech guys, and these are engineers and stuff like that dealing with a multi-million-dollar project that they have going on. And they had no idea how far along Optimus was. I had to show them videos. It was insane. They were like, wait, what? And I mean, these are guys that are like in the field, you know what I mean? So I just think that was incredible. I also took them for a ride in Colossus. We did the full self-driving in the Cybertruck, and they were just like, holy cow, man. Like they had Teslas, but they had, you know, legacy Teslas that were still on like 12 whatever, and so they had to still touch the steering wheel, and so they were just like really shocked. So I think there's a lot of things like that where these are people that are in the know, and there's a lot of people that are in the know of things, but you can still be unaware of what's immediately happening. And I think we're seeing that a lot, especially with the analysts and a lot of these people that follow the stock and follow the company. They're just blissfully unaware of what's actually happening.
Hans?
Yeah, I would just to add what he was saying real quick, the tech industry right now is getting so, wide, and there are so many different areas that people can work in. If you are not like actively working on, just because you're an engineer, just because you're in tech, like you can be working at any number of companies and not be exposed to humanoid robotics and Tesla's advances in self-driving cars. Like you have to actually be working in something where you bump up against that in order to necessarily know about it. And I mean, there's, benefits and drawbacks about that, but like the same thing is just true of a lot of things in AI. There's a lot of people that just have no idea how fast things are moving in the AI space. And I think my big takeaway from the earnings call was, everyone is kind of up losing their marbles over DeepSeek right now, and how incredible it is that, we can now run Chat GPT 01 equivalent models that are open sourced on our computers at home. And that is an incredible achievement. But the fact of the matter is, yeah, we should have known that that was possible. Those of us who are actually paying attention to Tesla did know that that type of thing is possible, because a single AI 4 computer can, and the AI 3 computers can do it pretty well too. Like these computers that have less compute in them than a single, consumer grade NVIDIA 4090 GPU can do inference in your car using only local data to drive themselves at levels that are already competing with the safe humans, and they're on their way to being able to do that a whole lot better. And so like that achievement is as big or bigger than anything that NVIDIA has done from an efficiency of inference compute standpoint. And then hearing Elon just talking about how confident they are that this is essentially a solved problem, and that they have figured out how to make this they figured out how to build this system in the Cortex training cluster that does a better job of training this and solving it using autoregressive transformers. He's like, I'm surprised that, this autoregressive transformer architecture just continues to be able to solve problems that are shocking. And like, there's a whole lot of nuance that goes into that. But the long story short is that they are continuing to be like the tip of the spear at bringing real world artificial intelligence to the market. And that's just going to be an insanely huge thing that everyone is underestimating, including a lot of people in the, like, even Brett Adcock, CEO of Figure AI. He's like, I would like to have 100,000 robots by like 2029 that we ship. They're like, so you're planning to be like 2% of the robots sold in 2029 or 2030. Great job. Awesome.
I love it. I love it. That is, I hadn't looked at it that way, but I think his number is realistic. I think if Figure progresses as they expect, they could, assuming they figure out manufacturing, which is a very big if, get to 100,000. How exciting would that be for us to own, to manufacture as much as the fourth biggest bot maker in China? That'd be really exciting. Well, in the earnings call, one thing that I was seeing is people are very concerned and disappointed. Oh, I was expecting, much bigger this or that. Look, we're not getting back to 30% margins. If you look at when the 30% automotive margins happened, it was in 2021. It was when all those cars that Elon said, I'm not going to let you buy out your lease. If you want to lease it, I'm taking it back because I want it for my fleet. All of those were coming back and being sold at astronomical prices. You were getting a whole new margin of on the sale of a used vehicle. So that's not coming back. That was never the goal. I think when we get to robotaxi, we may see high margins again. I think semi is going to start with high margins. I think bot is going to start with high margins, but I'll get to that in a second. Why are we seeing all this disappointment? Well, guys, because this has been choreographed for the last 2 years. We saw that there were not new factories going up to expand the product lineup immediately, that this was not the roadmap. So what we saw, well, this was just barely, barely in the range of expectations. Yes. So the disappointment was already priced in, and we knew that this was what we were expecting. This is what regrouping and getting ready for the next round of growth is. I'm not disappointed that they're cranking the handle. I'm just a little disappointed that the Jack in the Box hasn't come popping out of the box just yet. So what we're looking at with that is the roadmap. When Cybercab launches, it's not going to launch at 30,000. It's not going to launch at 25,000. It's going to launch at launch pricing. It will be what the market will bear. And for every, if they're selling them at 50 grand, that means for every one they sell, they can keep one for themselves without dipping into their huge stockpile of cash. The same with bots. The initial bot's not going to sell for 25, 30,000. Elon has finally said as much. It will be sold for what the market demands. Just look at the Fortune 500. How many companies will buy 5 or 10 of them just to bring them in-house and understand what they can do and determine their future roles? All of them. All of them, with very few exceptions, will have some in-house for their own validation. So that means that, again, they're going to be selling for 100,000, which means for every bot that Tesla sells, they can keep 2 for themselves without dipping into their pile of cash. And these margins will, of course, come down over time, but it won't matter because the value in it is going to exceed the cost of goods sold by a substantial margin for a very long time. And no matter how fast you ramp the RoboCab, the Cybercab itself, it'll still lag behind what the market is ready to accept in terms of both regulation and just general deployment. It'll take a bit of a shift that will happen in terms of government, I would say quickly, but in terms of real world, slowly, but it will happen faster than Tesla's likely ability to ramp it in any given market. That's the future we're looking at. That's why the price to earnings ratio doesn't seem truly mentally insane, but we'll see on all that.
Yeah, what I love about this panel is just the collection of expertise from different perspectives, because even some of the stuff you were saying, Brian, like I wasn't even focused on. I think And then obviously just, Hans, your perspective on AI and how DeepSeek, like, which I would love to think of, like, potentially how does DeepSeek impact even the computer that is in our Teslas potentially. But yeah, I guess, my thought in this is that I was actually, I'm surprised that the market didn't shift. I mean, it obviously got impacted after the delivery numbers came out and stuff. So I felt like a lot of that, the miss was already kind of baked in, is kind of what you were saying, maybe, Brian. But yeah, I think it's great that the continued focus is really, like, we know we're in between growth periods. I think it's great that they're doing some things like the Model Y refresh, which, by the way, looks amazing. And then really, again, the focus is getting ready for the Cybercab, unsupervised FSD, and starting to ramp the robots. I mean, those are like, and then of course we all know the sleeping giant, which is, battery and solar. And so, again, they have a lot of, as we know, it's a bunch of startups within one. They're pulling all the levers, but we do know that right now, they're in that moment of, like, continual transition. So I think, what I'm really excited about is unsupervised FSD. Again, we can even show the video right now, or I can talk as it's going, because I think it's going to be, I don't think there's any sound anyways. But Tesla released a video showing, this is, I believe, Fremont, and they showed the Teslas coming from the production line, essentially being delivered to the shipping yard, or driving themselves to the shipping yard. And we found out later that the cameras are actually calibrating as it's going down the production line, which is makes sense, but it's pretty wild, because typically you do need to drive a little bit every time you want to calibrate your cameras, at least, if you need to recalibrate it. But next thing you know, once these they line up to get shipped out, and then next thing you know, once they come off, they potentially could literally drive themselves to the new owner, which is pretty insane. But we're continuing more and more to just really see the future, where Tesla's headed. And I think that's ultimately, like, why I personally invested in Tesla. It wasn't because it was a car company. It's because it's an AI robotics autonomous company, right? That's literally what I'm looking forward to. So I thought there was a lot of really great updates on the things that are coming in the next year or two. So that's ultimately, like, I think what I took away. I mean, the financials are important, but I know that we're in this in-between period right now. I think it's pretty crazy too, to think that they also had 4 factories shut down to essentially update for the Model Y, all simultaneously at the same time, to start ramping for what they are projecting is the second year of the best-selling car, which is the Model Y. So just, again, this is the best-selling car in the world, both gas and electric. So there's, I'm very bullish on where this company is headed. And my personal thought, not only had I, I think, Elon just seemed very, very enthusiastic, very bullish, very just matter of fact. And so I thought it was just a really good overall, like, earnings call, especially given, we got past the election. We've had Tesla's, just released the Model Y. So I think and we know he's very heavily involved right now with Doge with the Trump administration. So I think that this was also just a really good indication of, like, where his mind's at, where he's pushing the team on, and really where they're headed.
Another good thing to point out is that he made it very clear that there's parts of the company that run so efficiently they never see him. And I think that was really good at understanding that fundamentally, like, Tesla is hitting on all cylinders, man. Like, they are crushing it. So much so that he has the time to do these other things like Doge and the SpaceX achievements that they have been able to do, and all of the stuff with Cortex and Colossus. Like, these are fundamental things that are gonna impact so much later down the road, and he's able to focus on those because of how good of a team he's amassed, and how efficient everybody's doing. Like, it's just incredible.
So just some highlights from literally from their deck. I do think that, it does need to be called out that they had a historical quarter for deliveries. So they, but also too, again, other things, profitability. I think they have $36 billion in cash now, which is, very, very healthy. AI training compute is up 400%. Their energy business is where's the stat on that? Their energy business is killing it as well. I think it's something like, but their energy business is killing it. We'll get into that in a little bit. So this was kind of more of just a flash up. I don't know if there was any thoughts from you guys on potentially from this slide, or I do know another thing is that cost of goods is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things is, yes, margin has been eroding, but they have been just completely ruthless on the cost of goods to make the cost per vehicle sold continue to go down.
I would add to that this is based on the older Model Y, not the new Model Y, which will of course be cheaper to build and manufacture and quicker. So this number is only going to continue improving. If the average cost of the average car is under $35,000, that's including all the Cybertrucks S and X that were built. So that is pretty good. But even if you take those out, which only make up a small part of the picture, that means that the Model Y is very affordable to build even before the update.
Joe, to you.
So this is a outlook, and I thought this was pretty cool that they did this. So you have volume, you cash profits, products, but still highlight this area down here. It says plans for new vehicles, including more affordable models, remain on track for the start of production in the first half of 2025. Like that small line is like huge when you think about like what's to come. And we always say this, we always say like how Tesla is like making all these chess moves and you really don't see it unfold. But the fact that they were able to keep like all of these Model Ys under wraps and nobody was able to really see it besides a few spy shots that were out there, like that's pretty incredible. And let's not forget that they made 20 Cybercaps that nobody ever saw before they put them out. So yeah, they are moving, man. The only thing I'm thinking about that hasn't been mentioned, nobody's really talked about, is the Roadster. Like, that's got to come out at some point.
That's it.
We've been saying that for a minute. At some point.
2020, baby.
All right, so I just wanted to show this graphic. We talked a little bit about this, but I don't know if the panel wants to give their point of view on just how incredibly hard this is or thoughts on this. But I do want to say that, Tesla, obviously, as we know, has the price has fluctuated as well a lot. But ultimately, this is the chart that you want to see, is that and there's no one better than Tesla to do it, which is, the average cost of goods per vehicle. They achieved an all-time low this past quarter. And again, as Brian was saying, this is on the old Model Y, and we know with the new Model Y, there's going to be a lot of efficiencies that should be gained from that. And then even with the Cybercab, depending on as they ramp, and that could be more of a late 2026 thing before you actually see the benefit of that. But I could continue to see, I could see us seeing this continue to go down. But Brian or Hans, you guys got any thoughts on this slide?
No, I think we just talked about it.
Yeah, it's just really a very big slog. And the thing that I think they run into is that, they mentioned that we're once again in an environment where we're going to be cell constrained this year. And I think that is like, if you drive your cogs down, if they had tried to release the $20,000 model a year ago, and they knew that they were going to run into battery constraints immediately upon, massively growing beyond roughly 2 million units per year. Like, these types of decisions that they have been making make a lot more sense when you can see all the data that they have. And it's just hard to see all of the data that they have as retail investors, as analysts. And so we kind of have to guess and trust management to a certain degree. But I think there's a lot of people who are disappointed that we haven't seen cogs get down this low as quickly as they have. And yeah, my thought on that is just that you always have to balance the type of, like, you improve cogs by growing unit volumes and innovating in the manufacturing line. But as soon as you do that, then you unlock new latent demand, that because you get further down the elasticity curve of demand, and then you start hitting all of your supply chain constraints. And so, yeah, you just have to take all of that into account. And Elon is great at understanding how to navigate a very, very complicated web of bottleneck after bottleneck after bottleneck, and knowing, like, seeing down the different branches of the decision trees, to understand how best to make it all the way through that whole maze.
I would add to that the internal combustion engine manufacturers, they haven't found these efficiencies. They haven't found ways to drive down their cost of goods sold. Their process of reducing costs started 70, 80 years ago, and they're done. They've got no more efficiencies to squeeze. We know their labor costs just took a significant jump, and their assembly lines haven't really been updated in the last 40 years to accommodate a more streamlined process. This is coming back to haunt them. It's the lazy thing to do. It's easy. Well, we've got a line, it works. Just keep it running. Just keep going. Well, great. But at some point, the other guys are going to come along and do things differently and better. To Hans's point, I still see people saying, well, they shouldn't have made the Cybertruck. They should have made the high volume compact first. Great. If we've only got enough batteries for 130,000 Cybertrucks, that means you only have enough batteries for 250,000 compacts. Guys, that's not the kind of volume we're talking about. That would create a real bottleneck. That would create a serious problem. It would be nice if we could see some temporary reprieve on the tariffs from imported batteries, so that we can get batteries from China until such time that the US actually starts making LFP batteries in serious volume, or just any batteries in serious volume outside of Tesla. Because a lot of the investments that we saw being put into battery manufacturing over the last year and a half, scaled back because they could see that there was going to be a political shift that would be hostile to EVs and batteries, and they wisely withheld investment. So we've painted ourselves into a corner there, and I don't know what the solution is on that, but blaming the Cybertruck for the lack of a compact doesn't make sense.
There's always got to be something to point the finger at, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to our boys and girls over at Bank of America. You want to hit them with that one, Brian? Your favorite bank?
Oh no, it was Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo.
They're
my
real.
Bad. Sorry, Bank of America.
There's so many geniuses out there, it's hard to pick just one. Wells Fargo upgraded their price target on Tesla. You guys, this is so exciting. They increased it by like 8%, 7.5%, all the way up to $135 a share. Quick question, what are you guys doing over there? I referred to them in a post on X yesterday as sack honkers, because that's what I imagine they're doing all day rather than research and analysis. Where do you come up with these numbers? Do you use a dartboard? Do you ask your magic 8-ball? Try again later. This is terrible. And they're not alone. JP Morgan Chase has famously had a low target for a long time. Meanwhile, they're one of the biggest investors on the institutional side. I don't know what's going on. And before the show we were talking, Joe was saying, the more I look at the analysis from these wizards, these geniuses, I have no idea what they're actually doing and who on earth is paying them. Because if I missed that catastrophically, even once, it would impact my career, but over and over for 10 years straight, oh, I would hope I would be fired, but that's not how Wells Fargo do it.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
In general, that's just not how analysts do it. Like, you can tell that their incentive systems don't have anything to do with actually being correct and providing at least the public with actionable insights that make them money, because they're awful at that.
Yeah, it's crazy because in movies they're doing all kinds of research and back deals to find out information, but in reality, like, they don't care about any of that stuff. It's like they don't even do the simple research that we do to make this podcast. Freaking
They
wild.
should tune into the beat, is what you're saying. Maybe
Yes.
they'll be able to. All right, Joe, to you on this one.
So just so anybody's aware, the best-selling vehicle in the world is about to sell more. So
Really? And they're sold out of the white.
yeah,
year.
that is insane. So somebody made a comment about how this is actually a limited launch series. Like, they actually capped it. Clearly they capped it, which is pretty good for people who are waiting for the regular version to come out sometime in this year, later this summer. So I mean, this is just, I mean, the comparison of these, like, side by side, it's like they don't even look like the same vehicle, really. Like, it's pretty awesome. It just looks like Tesla added a new vehicle. But this is happening. The launch series of the Model Y is still happening alongside the regular versions of the Model Y 7-seaters and things like that, because the launch is just a 5-seater. But yeah, man, they are continuing to hit it on all cylinders, and fundamentally, it's pretty impressive.
And before we get the corrections in the comments and chat saying all cylinders, what do you mean? Joe means 4680s.
Correct.
Exactly.
Hitting on all 4680s.
Shout out Tuesday. So Brian, I had already let you know about this, but this upcoming Tuesday, we're going to be having the lead engineer on the Model Y, vehicle engineer, the director, along with the program manager on the Model Y, coming to speak to us, kind of like the Cybercab event on Tuesday. And so if you're in the Bay Area, that's actually a great way, just if you want to engage with Tesla specifically, get some of your personal questions answered or more. We are going to have a Q&A at the very beginning. But I think the thing I want to call out is, if you had an original Model 3 and you have been in a Model 3, a new one, like a 2024, 2025, they are night and day. And I had 2 Model 3s in 2018, and I've been in the new one. My first time was in Michigan, actually, with Brian and Bearded Tesla and Dirty Tesla. A lot of Teslas there. But, it's a night and day vehicle. And I think if you get an opportunity, go check out the new Model Y. These things are built, I'm not going to say 10 times better, but it's a different vehicle. It's a different feel. It's a different suspension, the quiet inside, the interior design and everything, even the back screen, the foldable rear seats, and so I definitely agree with Elon and Tesla's prediction that this is going to be the best-selling car in the world for a second year, because this facelift is so much better than the previous one. Like, you're talking, in my opinion, night and day. So you can still get some really good deals on the existing inventory, but if you want a launch series or a different one, like, you're talking major upgrades, you won't, in my opinion, you may not even be able to tell the difference between the previous one and this one, because it's that stark of a difference.
Yeah, and I would just say real quickly that I saw in Berlin that they are still producing the old Model 3 at the same time that they're producing the new Model 3, they haven't cut over all of the, or sorry, new Model Y. They haven't cut over all the lines to the new version yet. I'll be curious to see if that's the case across the other factories as well. But this is something that while they're, like they can only get so many parts for the new Model Y. And so this is going to be something that probably persists through the rest of the quarter, that it's going to be a process of transitioning all production of Model Y over to the new Model Y. And so we're going to see these great prices. And I mean, from my perspective as a cheap bastard, man, $12,000 off almost on for the same version of the old Model Y compared to the new Model Y. That is an awesome deal, an awesome value. Like, you're never gonna get that on a new Model Y anytime in probably forever. So that's awesome. Plus, then you can, now I don't know if their asterisk price there includes the referral credits, but the new Model Y is not eligible for referral credits. The old one is. So you can save, I think it's an additional $500 off of those as well if you go to my profile on X and click on the link. I'll just talk my own book there, since I know that Brian has more referral credits than I do. So or you can use John, go hit up Joe, use his. I know that, man, for being
use
like
Han.
club president and like founder, how do you guys not have more referral credits get used?
Everyone they know already has one. They can't use it.
So true.
That's why.
That's
and
so true.
yeah, I do have more. Feel free to use Hans's, but definitely use somebody who gives you good information. I see a lot of people on X saying, just use mine. I know I've never helped you in any way, but I would appreciate it. And it is a great system in that regard. I know in Texas they are making the new model side by side on the same line as the existing model. So it is, and we've seen other manufacturers where they'll make more than one car on a single line. That's not impossible. Even in Fremont, the Model S and X are made on the same line, intermixed. So this is a nice way to get the new model up to speed without risking slowing down production entirely, without shutting off the line like they did with the S and X, which was a real problem that I'm sure they are eager to not replicate.
Well,
It's
they did
cool to
say
see
they're
them-
gonna.
Oh,
They
sorry.
did say they're
go for it.
a couple of weeks of shutdown, didn't they? Say that they're just gonna be a few weeks.
No. Yes, there was a report that said that in China there would be a shutdown over Chinese New Year. Well, I mean, Chinese New Year's already a shutdown. That story never made sense. We'd already seen them building Model Ys 2 months before that. I assumed that story was just saying a thing to get clicks.
Most likely.
I was just going to say, it's cool to see Tesla continue to get better and better at these cutover processes too. Because to Brian's point, like the S and the X transition was awful, and then the 3 Highland was much better than that. But like this process for cutting over the new Model Y is even way better than the Model 3 cutover, and this is before we even bring out whatever the other new models that are starting this year are going to be.
The Tesla Semi. The factory is coming. It's the walls are complete, and they are scheduling to build the first trucks later this year. So obviously they're building the building's up. Now they got to build the production line and everything else that they need to essentially get this going. I think this is just an incredible photo. I always think of, when I think of Sparks, Nevada, I always think of like the horses running through in one of their original videos of just like wild horses running through this area. And it's just an incredible feat. And just to think that there's 2 essentially big gigafactories or huge factories out in Nevada is just, it's crazy. And you have Redwood Materials down there. But the Tesla Semi, like I said, we know 80% of the emissions come from trucking. And once these things are on the road, they're being tested a lot right now. A lot of big companies like Costco, Walmart, Pepsi, they're all doing testing. Pepsi obviously has a huge fleet. think even DHL as well. But this is a sleeping giant in my opinion. Oh, sorry, my little man came in. But yeah, so we know the semi is the sleeping giant, and this is going to be. I'm really excited to see this ramp.
Yeah, I think especially when you look at the emissions accountability of semis, like this is a thing that definitely needs to happen. And the fact that Tesla's doing it, I mean, like they just threw that into that Model Y video. Yeah, the Model Ys drove themselves, but here they're loaded onto a freaking Tesla semi and being delivered. Like they're just closing the loop very quickly on all of this, and it's pretty impressive.
Joe, back to you.
So I work very, very hard at the mega factory in China. No, just kidding. No, yeah. So Tesla Energy is making all these massive moves, and to see the Shanghai mega factory come online is freaking crazy. Like this is how it looks at the one in Lathrop, and they're just keeping us going. I mean, as we know, with China, they are like incredibly efficient. So this is going to be really impressive. I mean, I mean, Elon said it on the call. Stationary storage is like one of those things that is definitely needed, but the profitability and I mean, that's just you're literally batteries in a box. Like that. I mean, that profit margin's insane on that, man. It's just got to be crazy. Even building out a factory for it, like that's just the profit margins got to be crazy on that, Brian.
If you had to build one of these factories and could only run it for 5 or 10 years before you saturated the market and needed to shut it down, it would still be a good investment because the factory only costs 100 million, 200 million. And from that, you're going to produce that much a quarter in profit. So I think it's a pretty good investment either way. And yeah, between the mega packs, the bots, the Cybercab, we're heading into a good margin environment for the products. And that's before we even talk about the service. I'm of the opinion that Tesla Semi may never be able to purchase FSD, but because it's a commercial product, it would be sold as a service, as a ongoing recurring fee. Maybe it's $1,000 a month. Maybe you're getting $1,000 a month on 50,000 trucks extra each year. It would be a real cash cow, and it would still save the shippers a ton of money.
Great call outs by Brian on the factory. Especially, we all know that the mega packs, there's unlimited demand on that, in my opinion, right? I mean, maybe not unlimited, but there's a lot of demand on that you could just sell for years. I mean, that's why they're building all these mega pack factories. And I think they're thinking of another one, a third one, right? Didn't they announce that? A third mega pack factory?
So it was unclear. To me, there was confusion on it. Elon said there's the mega pack factory, there's the Shanghai factory, and there's a third factory. Now, was he meaning a third mega pack factory or a third China factory? Less clear, but it does sound like there is a third, a new factory in the works. So I will have, of course, to obsessively cover that.
Okay, so I think there was a lot of amazing call outs, but what brought us all into Tesla? I think we all, as even hosts, co-hosts on this channel, something all brought us into this world of Tesla. And for me, it was driving on autopilot for the first time. And that's really what changed my mind, where, I bought more Teslas along with it, started investing in the stock and creating a whole community around it. But they just announced, so we showed the video at the beginning of this podcast. Again, this is kind of like what it looks like. This is at Fremont, where essentially when it gets off the production line, there's probably a couple things that happen, but long story short, it can drive itself to the shipping yard, about 1.2 miles. The cameras calibrate while it's on the production line. But really, what's going to happen here is Unsupervised FSD is coming to Austin in June, and then to a lot of other cities through the rest of this year. So I thought that this was a huge announcement. It's something that they had been obviously talking a lot about. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we already know we have actual smart summon. Or even if you have a Model 3, Model Y, you can literally press a button and from park to park, it will do the whole drive for you. Now they're coming off the production line, driving to the shipping yard. They may even be able to drive to the owner's house once they get shipped to the right hub. But we are in some crazy and fun times. I think the future is very exciting, especially when you look at how technology in the world is changing right now. So I was really bullish on this. This is like one of the, it's crazy. They released these videos on Tuesday night, obviously before the earnings call. So there was just a lot of excitement around this. But what did you guys think about this specific aspect?
I think Marquez Brownlee's hair shaving is going to be an epic video. I'll say that. But no, I think this means road trip. But besides that, I think that was a mic drop moment. He was like, "Oh yeah, and yeah, it's happening this year. Yeah, June." Like, like he just put that out there. Like, no, we're gonna have unsupervised vehicles in June of this year. Like, because on the last earnings call, just in the Q3 call, this was still a pie in the sky for a lot of analysts. They were still like thinking like, oh well, probably by 2026 or 2027. You know what I mean? Like they did not see it. And even though like you have people like Ross or whatever shouting from the mountaintops, it's just not possible. And there's no way he drives himself to work every day. He knows it works. He sees it all the time. Like anybody who has a Tesla, they know it's possible. You're just sitting in there. I'm literally just a co-pilot in my Cybertruck. So I think it was awesome. I think it was a good mic drop moment for the call. And I'm just excited to head out there in June and hail a Cybercab.
Well, I think it's interesting that June is probably when we're going to get the shareholder meeting, and it's definitely going to happen in Austin. So I think a lot of folks who are coming into town for that may have the opportunity to experience something very new and exciting. That I don't think is coincidence in any way. I think that is, I believe in coincidences. I don't think this is one of them. Yeah, there's my quick math said Tesla's probably saving, if they implement this company-wide at all 4 factories, they're going to be saving realistically $1 million a month in staffing and other costs related to shuttling vehicles around. Because it's not just the 2 to 4 minutes it takes to do the drive to the delivery area, the staging area. No, it's also the fact that you have to wait for 4 or 5 of them to get there to take a shuttle back. It's the wages of the other person back. It's the time to get back. It's the standing around waiting for the next ones. It's an inefficient process. And I don't think anyone who has this job goes home at the end of the day and says, boy, I sure feel fulfilled moving cars from A to B all day. This is a job that is ripe for disruption. And, million a month compared to Tesla's balance sheet, not much. It's only something like $6 to $10 per car. But when you compare that to the total volume of cars and the total expected volume, it makes sense. And when it comes to Cybercab, they're going to have to do this. There is no steering wheel. If it's not calibrated coming off the line, you got a problem. How are you going to calibrate it? So this is a necessary step they had to do anyway. It just happens to also save a bunch of money.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that's going to be insane. One thing I was going to ask Hans, I mean, I think the good and the bad of technology changing so fast is like, obviously it's good. I think when technology is innovating and changing the world, I think it's a good thing. There's always going to be parts of it that you need to be managed. But, as we know, Tesla, right, with AI, and we know computing is changing overnight with DeepSeek and what happened this past week. How do you think DeepSeek and really compute power could impact the way that Tesla is making their hardware?
Well, Yeah, the question, I don't know if it has a huge impact, because to the point that I made earlier on the pod, that it's already super impressive that Tesla can infer this model that can drive so well on such a small computer. That means they've already figured out how to do all sorts of innovative things to make their inference run so well. So the point that has been made about DeepSeek is, they had constraints put on them that other companies didn't have, that forced them to figure out some of these engineering solutions to make this run more efficiently. Well, that is the exact situation that Tesla's been in for years now. And so they've probably been exploring the exact types, or at least the classes of ways that DeepSeek solved this problem for a while. So I don't know that Tesla specifically learned anything new from DeepSeek that they didn't really already know or try. Maybe they did. It's possible. But I think at the high level, one of the things that it shows is that we are still at the very early innings of figuring out how to get these AI models, these digital brains, to work well and efficiently. And that we're just we have only just begun to figure out how to do that. And there's going to be algorithmic improvements that we are almost guaranteed to find over a short period of time, because there's so many people working on these problems, that what DeepSeek has figured out is not the last set of algorithmic improvements that are going to make the next 5 times, 10 times, 20 times improvement in being able to run great models on bad hardware. Brian was making a point earlier when we were talking about the fact that you can basically, if you really wanted to pull the computer out of a home pregnancy test, you could actually run Doom on that computer, just that little tiny chip, because technically it's capable of doing that amount of processing. And it's because we have figured out great uses of technology that optimize software to be able to run on rudimentary hardware. So that kind of thing is going to continue. I think it was interesting hearing the tension between Elon and Ashok on the call. Ashok's like, we can probably get superhuman levels of safety to work on AI3, and Elon's like, yeah, well, we're just not going to do that because it doesn't make sense for some other reasons. Technically, I think it's possible, and I have thought it's possible to, at some, maybe between 6 months and a year after FSD gets solved on AI4, for that to be compressed down and to actually work really well on AI3. Definitely much, much, much better than we have today from a compute standpoint. Now, a lot of people have been making claims about the cameras. And I am also skeptical about the resolution of the cameras being a huge limiting factor. But one of the things that we did see that I hadn't really thought about is that the addition of this bumper camera, it seems like that's going to be an important thing for the launch of the unsupervised service. And so the fact that AI3 doesn't have a bumper camera, that could be the single thing that causes Elon to say, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and upgrade the computers, because I want to have that as that additional layer of safety and visibility that we didn't put in originally. It's hard to know exactly what the calculus is there. So that said, when we look at what computer they're probably going to put into the older vehicles that currently have AI3, my guess is it's some modified version of an AI5 computer. There's some reasons that I think that that's going to be more likely than trying to take AI4 and put it in. Just because
you're looking at shoehorning it into a situation that's unnecessary.
Yeah, AI4 is not currently able to just be installed off the shelf into the hardware 3 computer slot. So they're going to have to do a whole bunch of work to make it, whatever computer they want to replace AI3 with, they've got to do a whole bunch of work to make it fit into that, or either that, or they have to re-engineer like the entire interface of the computer to all the sensors. That would be a giant pain in the butt. I think the easiest thing to do is to make sure that whatever new computer you use has the exact same ports and plugs and everything, so that you can just take out the old AI3 computer, plug in the new one, and then maybe you do also change the sensors on the other end as well. So maybe you change the cameras and the computer. I'm not sure. I think, Brian, do you have thoughts on this?
Not
Okay.
really. Not really. Yeah.
So I just saw you nod in your head, and I didn't know if maybe you would have an idea on the camera side of things. But if you're going to have to do all that work to make a new computer that has those same plugs, and you can't just like order some more AI4 computers from your suppliers who already make that, you've got to do a whole bunch more work to them anyways. Then I think you build in plans to have an AI3 interface version of an AI5 computer as one of the SKUs when you order up a whole new batch of AI5 computers for all the cyber cabs. So I think that's more than likely what will happen from a compute standpoint. And I also think that that's going to take some extra time. And I think the fact that it's going to take some extra time will show us, like, I don't think they're going to abandon the AI3 FSD development in the meantime. So I think that we could potentially get to better than AI for like the levels of performance that we see on the new AI4 Model Ys. I think that the hardware or the AI3 cars could perform better than that before the computer ends up getting upgraded sometime in the next 12 to 24 months.
So one thing about the compute required, I've had people say, well, once it's complete, how can they scale it back? Well, first of all, you just can. But one element that's kind of overlooked is right now, a good chunk of the compute is dedicated to attention monitoring. And it's not just looking if eyeballs forward, okay. No, it's running a lot of complex math to determine not just, which direction you're looking, but what you're doing, what kind of glasses you're wearing, all that. And that amount of compute gets freed up once it's unsupervised, once it no longer cares what's taking place in the cabin. So that right there saves some cycles.
You know what's wild about all of this is that
No.
Nothing.
This is all happening at the same time that they're going to make like almost 10,000 Optimus spots, like on a path to 100,000. Like that's insane. Like they have so much on their plate with the Semi, with the Roadster, with the AI chip 3 and 4 and potential 5 down the road, all while making Optimus, all while optimizing the lines and efficiencies for these new vehicles that are coming. I mean, there's a lot on Tesla's plate right now.
Just a little.
Holy cow. Just a little bit.
The one thing I was going to say is that for better or worse, Tesla's always going to they're always going to optimize and work on where is the mass volume. So like if you think of like software updates, they're going to focus on the software, making software updates for the 90% volume versus the 1 or 2%, let's say legacy S and X and things like that. I remember in our discussion with Elon specifically in Texas back in 2022 in May, he talked all about that. And so I do think that hardware 3, it sounds like they will have to replace it. I don't know when that's going to happen, and I don't know how big of a priority it will be. Obviously, they want to make good, but the way that this company works and operates, they're moving so fast forward that sometimes things in the back can get deprioritized. Again, they're going to probably make it good with them, but that's just a big call out. The one last thing let's just hit on this and then we'll end. FSD licensing. Oh, sorry, Brian, did you want to say something?
No. Yeah.
FSD licensing sounds like they're talking to some legacy auto. Elon said that they're not gonna send a bunch of documents and let people find it out. They're literally, here's the car, just tear it down. They're gonna call Sandy probably, tear it down, figure out how to do it. But I say all that, but also knowing that their car is still changing, right? They just added the front-facing camera onto the Model Y. So there's once they solve unsupervised, if not already, once they solve that, I think they're going to have to take that, whatever that configuration is, and kind of like snapshot it for a moment so that they can also potentially license this out. But what were your thoughts on the FSD licensing?
I knew it was happening. It'd be crazy to suspect it wasn't happening. I'm just glad they were able to actually mention that it is and how far along it is.
Awesome. So I think, as always, these hours, this time goes super fast. So just a couple of quick announcements. If you're around, I know, shout out to Brian. He was able to make it down for the Cybercab. He got a lot of really good knowledge. Obviously, this is not a prototype. This is their mass production volume car, which is the Model Y. But we will have the Tesla team on boots on the ground Tuesday from 7 to 9 in Santana Row in San Jose. So swing by, sign up on our website if you can make it. And then just a couple of other last things. We got a Sticker Mule store. So TUSV Sticker Mule, search that in Google. You'll find us. We also have the X takeover coming up. We are going to be making an announcement sometime next week on a second keynote speaker. But again, there's potentially more keynote speakers coming. We will see a lot of, I would say, polls casted, and we're making some moves. So, the second keynote speaker next week. We all obviously have Lars coming. So go to xtakeover.com. And I just want to do a quick special shout out to Brian, Hans, Joe. Thank you for being here. Thank you all to the viewers for being here every week. And we will see you all next week and keep you updated.